can't be trusted to keep their word to protect our health care in the middle of a pandemic. The new Supreme Court nominee that Trump will present to us in a week is going to be someone who will be voting against the Affordable Care Act, which the Supreme Court will be hearing in November. This is also a nominee that will be either totally against Roe v. Wade or will support all of the restrictive choice laws that the states, too many states, are passing even as we speak. So those are the two major criteria, I would say, position criteria, and there are more, but the major ones that we need to let people know is at stake with this nominee, who, if confirmed, will have a lifetime appointment to the Supreme Court. This person will be on the Supreme Court for decades, making decisions. And the first one will be to strike down the Affordable Care Act and thereby pushing millions of people out of health care, not to mention millions of people who have pre-existing conditions. And by the way, in our country, we already have over 6 million who have tested positive for the virus. And I would say that the insurance companies, left to their own devices, will deem, without the Affordable Care Act, that all these people will have a pre-existing condition. And you know what that means. So the Affordable Care Act will be the first thing that the new Trump nominee will be striking down, should that person be confirmed. The second thing would be all of the choice issues. And if not striking down Roe v. Wade entirely, just what I said, they will undo so many of the protections that we women count on, millions of women. Now, I remember Ruth Bader Ginsburg saying that she is really energized by all the young people who are really getting it, that they're very activist minded. And she has said, she is really energized by them. And she would say to all of the young people who are participating in this event that you are the change that she fought for. And one of the ways that we're going to make this change right now is to organize, mobilize, and vote. That is my ask. Now, the senators are going to do everything we can to prevent Mitch McConnell from getting his way with a new nominee, and aided and abetted by all the Republican senators who also vote. And so they will help him steal yet another Supreme Court seat. We're going to do everything we can to prevent him, but at the same time, as a parallel course, notorious RBG would want all of us to organize, to tell people what is at stake. And these are all the issues that are going to be at stake. The new Supreme Court will not support workers' rights, individual rights, LGBTQ rights, voting rights, you name it, the list goes on. That is what is at stake. So I want to thank you. And just let me tell you one more story. I had the opportunity to sit next to Ruth Bader Ginsburg at a dinner about 2 years ago. And we were talking about what's happening with the Supreme Court. We already know that they are moving toward protecting corporate interests over all of the individual rights that I just talked about. And she said she's really concerned that the court is going to have a lot more 5-4 split decisions, mainly on ideological lines. And both of us shared our concern, because you want the Supreme Court to be as united as possible, united in a positive way, not in the way that Donald Trump wants. He would like a 63 court that would just pretty much carry out his agenda. And that is not an agenda that we all care about. So the stacking of the courts, Mitch McConnell's all-out desire to just fill every single vacancy on the courts, and he's been doing that, including this one. We can fight back by organizing and voting like our lives depend on it, because it does. And especially for the young women and men who are participating, I say to you, you are the change. And we will be there with you. I will be with you. I know all the other speakers tonight will be with you, because we are in this together, and we have to be that change that RGB fought for. We should all be notorious. Okay, everybody, aloha, let's do it.
Thank you so much, Senator Hirono. Yes, we should all be so notorious. It's my great pleasure now to introduce to us this evening the Senator Cory Booker from New Jersey, who also sits on the Judiciary Committee and definitely is someone that we need in our corner right now. So thank you, Senator Booker, for being with us this evening.
No, thank you for those gracious words. It was great to hear Maisie. I have the honor of sitting really on the Judiciary Committee between two extraordinary women. I sit right between Maisie Hirono and Kamala Harris. And it's this extraordinary historic moment where three people of color, and never before, have sat together on the Judiciary Committee. Really, I've watched these two women on either side of me be real champions for justice and righteousness. And even though we haven't been able to stop that many or enough of these toxic, unqualified judges, many of whom who refuse to even admit that Brown versus Board of Education has settled law, not to mention the way that Mitch McConnell has been packing the courts on so many different fronts. At least we aren't silent. We stand and we tell the truth and we ask the tough questions and make sure that history knows that this didn't just happen. But that really brings us to where we are right now tonight as I sit here in Newark, New Jersey, in a community that, like all over our country, that should this appointment be made and should this nominee that President Trump will make get on the Supreme Court, it will have generational impact on issues ranging from civil rights to voting rights to our ability to do comprehensive climate change legislation, to the ability for people to control their own bodies, LGBTQ rights. I can go on and on and on. The ascendancy of corporations that we've seen, even with the court as it's composed now, Citizens United and so many other cases that are elevating the rights of corporations over the rights of individuals. All of these things are at stake right now. And so we must not be silent. We must speak up and we must focus on doing what we've done before. I was one of those people that wasn't sure if we could preserve the Affordable Care Act. They had the numbers, they had the votes, but outpouring of protest, of demonstration, of people stepping up and stepping forward to let their voices be heard, was actually able to persuade enough Republicans that it gave us a situation where we were able to block their attempts to tear down the Affordable Care Act. That is very much like where we are right now. We have to find every way possible that to call to the conscience of the Republicans to see if we can get two more to follow suit after Collins and Murkowski have already said that we should wait until after this election. We need two more. And so one of those things we need to do right now is to awaken people not to sit by silently as this moment is upon us, but instead to raise their voices, to be engaged, to make sure that they are not bystanders to history, but that they are upstanders for the issues that are such at the core of who our country is. But there's more than that. That's one thing we have to do, is try to win this confirmation battle, to push it back until after the inauguration. But that also means that at the same time, we have to win in November. This election is critically important. We now know it's not just the White House. We have seen now that Mitch McConnell controlling the United States Senate under a Democratic president and a Republican president. The person who controls the Senate has so much power and influence on our society. And it's time that we put Mitch McConnell into the minority. And that means those competitive Senate races all across the country, we must engage now. From North Carolina and South Carolina and Georgia to out west, Alaska, Arizona, Colorado, Montana, to the Midwest, states like Michigan, which we have to defend Gary Peters' seat, to states where we have Senate seats up like in Iowa, to the South, defending Doug Jones's seat in Alabama, to Kansas, to Texas, to even Mitch McConnell's very seat, which is up right now in Kentucky. All across this country, we have a pathway to getting back control of the Senate. This is not just about the courts, which have been packed. It's not just about the Supreme Court seat. Everything that progressives are fighting for, that we want to achieve, even if we get Joe Biden, can be stymied or stuck in the Senate by Mitch McConnell, who calls himself the Grim Reaper because of all the bills he has killed, even widely bipartisan bills. So this fight we have upon us right now must be on two fronts. It must be calling to conscience, calling to honor, calling to see if we can flip 2 more senators as we did during the healthcare debate. And it means winning the election, not just the presidency, which is of fundamental importance, but also making sure that we flip the Senate. Now, I believe that we can do that if we turn our worry into work, if we turn our stress into work, if we turn our frustration into work, if we turn our anger into work towards these ends. We have the numbers. We know we can get it done when it comes to this coming election. And so it's not time to let anyone sit this one out. We have to get folk woke. We have to get people off the sidelines to push at this moment in history. There's too much at stake. There is too much on the line. Generations not yet born will feel the consequences of these next 40 plus days. We have to give the best measure of our commitment, our sacrifice, and our struggle to make sure that we win these elections and do everything we can to show that the right way forward for Republicans who are concerned about their self-interest or their reelection or just their very view of character and the view of history, that everything is on the line. I have faith in what we can do. To end with the words of James Baldwin at the end of The Fire Next Time, he said, "I know what I'm asking you is impossible, but in today's day and age, the impossible is the least we can demand." And he said human history, and Negro history in particular, is a perpetual testimony to the achievement of the impossible. And he ends it by saying, everything we now must assume is in our hands. We have no right to assume otherwise. Let's take responsibility. Let's get this work done. I still believe we can achieve impossible things in these days, and that we can win a tremendous victory, not just for our country, but for the world and for generations to come. Thank you very much.
Hi, everybody. Thank you so much, Senator Booker. I'm Caitlin Breedlove with the Women's March, and I'm really happy to be able to introduce to you Senator Kirsten Gilbrand of New York. Senator, you're up.
Last night, I stood in front of the Supreme Court and I joined thousands of people that were gathered there to honor a woman who is not only an icon, but a legend, one of the greatest role models, certainly of my lifetime. When Ruth Bader Ginsburg went to law school, she was one of just 9 women in her class of 500. She refused to be limited by the expectations of society and helped to change the reality of her time. She was a trailblazer. She took herself to places few women had ever been. And she took the law to places it had never been. She stood for all of us. She stood against discrimination in all its forms. She was somebody who fundamentally understood the gifts that people had to give in this country, regardless of their sex, regardless of their gender orientation, and regardless of their race or their background. She knew that the words etched in stone above the entrance of the Supreme Court, equal justice under law, were still a goal and not a given. And she fought every day to make them a reality. We may never see a jurist with the courage of Ruth Bader Ginsburg ever again in our lifetimes. Justice Ginsburg was so much braver than the politicians who want to erase her legacy, who are putting reproductive rights, civil rights, LGBT rights, women's rights, and so much more at risk. She was so much braver than the president who is tearing our country apart, who seems to hate half of America, who seems to want to see this country burn and be in sorrow. She was so much braver than Mitch McConnell, who last time said, "Let the people decide," but this time knows the people won't side with him. The hypocrisy of that man is stunning, but it's not surprising. He has spent the past 3 years changing the rules to pack the courts with partisan judges and polarize the federal judiciary, and he brags about it. I've never seen someone more intentionally duplicitous, someone who is far more interested in cultivating and seeking power at all cost. Now, senators like Lindsey Graham are going back on their word and following his lead. Republicans want to force a vote on a new justice. It's up to all of us, senators like myself, advocates and citizens like you, to fight to make sure people have a say in this decision. On Election Day, we will decide who has the balance of power in Washington. We will choose a new president, and we will flip the U.S. Senate. When we flip the U.S. Senate, we can replace Mitch McConnell as majority leader and Lindsey Graham as chair of the Judiciary Committee. We can give the people of D.C. real representation and add 2 more voting senators. And we can write the rules to ensure justice and fairness. We've tried to work across the aisle and preserve the traditions of the Senate. But Mitch McConnell and Lindsey Graham have preferred ultimate power. They changed how the Senate operated for the worse. We will change it for the better. We will protect the Supreme Court. We will protect this country, and we will protect our democracy. We will protect women's rights, LGBTQ rights, and make sure transgender Americans have every right and privilege as every other American citizen in this country. We will protect healthcare. We will protect labor rights. We will protect voting rights and civil rights. We will carry on Justice Ginsburg's legacy. We will carry on her vision for equal justice under the law. We will not back down. We will not grow weary, and we will win.
Thank you so much, Senator. And now, a man who needs no introduction, Senator Jeff Merkley from Oregon.
Thank you so much, everyone. And Maisie, Cory, Kirsten, fellow champions for justice. We are in such a dark and dangerous time already with the pandemic, with the economic implosion, with the effort by some to sustain and continue systemic racism rather than eliminating racism. And we have a president, an authoritarian president, who is trying to take the imperial presidency model that our founders feared. He's doing it by destroying the checks and balances of our Constitution. He's doing it by tearing down the Fourth Estate, the press. He's doing it by undermining the integrity of the elections. And on top of all that, this enormous blow hits us on Friday night, where our champion for justice on the court, our moral conscience on the court, passes away and leaves a huge breach in the line. Wow. When there's a breach like that, it's incumbent on all the rest of us to fill it in. Because let's understand what the history of the United States is. It's a battle between government by and for the people and government that operates totally at the beck and call of the powerful. That's the difference between the Republican Party for the powerful and the Democratic Party for the people. It's a difference between rights that empower each individual and give them a full opportunity to thrive, and a team that seeks to compress those opportunities in order to put more power and wealth in the hands of those who already have it. So I know all of you on the call tonight, you're on the battlefield, you're in this fight. We have these 3 big electoral challenges before us, or governance challenges. The Supreme Court. As Cory noted, we have 2 Republicans who have honored with integrity the position they took 4 years ago, where they said, this close to election, let the people decide which president will nominate a justice. Only 2. And then we have Lamar Alexander saying today, it should surprise no one that the Republicans decide to fill a court seat when the Republicans are in control of the Senate. Translation, it should surprise no one that there is no integrity among the rest of the Republicans. And the principle they declared was so important and so fundamental 4 years ago, they're trampling it today. This is the exercise of raw political power for the wealthy and powerful. But we have political power too. We have the feet on the street. We have the fingers on the phone texting. We have the voices on the phone. We have the small donations. We have the rallies. And we have to make all of those count. We have to make them count on all the other Republican senators who 4 years ago said the principle is an election year, the people should decide. We need to see the people in those states turn out massively at the offices of those Republican senators on their phone call sheets, on their texting sheets, on their letter sheets, saying, be an individual of integrity. You declared a rule in order to steal a Supreme Court seat, but what mattered, what counted then in your position has to be honored now. And so that mass action matters. If we do not get those seats, there is no way procedurally to stop the nomination from going through. We have to have those 4 Republican senators. And we have to take the Senate and the Oval Office. We know that the majority leader of the Senate decides what's on the floor and can decide whether there are amendments and can decide every piece of how those are structured. It's enormous sense of what gets considered and how much accountability there is to the voters. And on healthcare, housing, education, living wage jobs, on the fundamentals of the Equality Act, equal opportunity for LGBTQ community in every aspect of our lives, taking on the issue of labor law so that workers get a fair chance to have a fair wage for the work they do, taking on climate chaos, destroying our planet. We have to have that majority in the Senate. And that means fighting like hell in Maine, in North Carolina, in Iowa, in Montana, in Colorado, in Arizona, in Georgia, in Kentucky, in Kansas, in Alaska. There are plenty of opportunities for us to win. And if we're not in those states, we can help by being on the phone to help turn out voters in those states, by being on the texting teams that help turn out voters in those states. And that will also help us win the presidential fight that we have to win. So there we are. We have to double down. I don't know of a moment, certainly not in my life, when there was such a potential pivot in terms of the direction of this country. If we do not win on the court battle, if we do not win on the Senate battle, if we do not win on the Oval Office battle, you can pretty much kiss the vision of government of, by, and for the people goodbye. Why do I say that? Find a place in the world where there's been this level of wealth inequality, this level of income inequality, where it has been turned around without a Great Depression or without a revolution. I've asked my team to find such a condition, and we haven't found it yet. But that means we're hanging on by our fingernails. And we have the opportunity now to reverse things, but it has to happen in this next 44 days, I believe it is. 6 weeks from Tuesday, 44 days for us to fight with everything we have got. Let's win this pivot in history and put America back on the track of the vision of opportunity for all, for foundations for every family to thrive. Thank you.
And thank you so much, Senator Merkley. It's my pleasure to introduce the co-author of the Green New Deal, Senator from Massachusetts, Ed Markey.
Thank you so much to the progressive all-star team, which has been gathered here tonight all across the country, because this is now a call to political battle. We are now at a pivotal point, a turning point in American history, and we must respond. Our hearts are broken that the great Ruth Bader Ginsburg has passed away. And the torch is passed to us to now stand up and to fight with everything that we have. And we know that the Republicans, that Mitch McConnell, that Donald Trump is going to do the same thing. They're not backing down. And we can't back down. This is our moment. This is the time when we have to respond historically. And everything, absolutely everything, is now at stake. We're 6 weeks from an election. Donald Trump is the most corrupt president in American history. He is criminally negligent. He is a racist. He sits in the Oval Office. We have to remove him and remove Mitch McConnell as the Senate Majority Leader. There's just no question about that. And we need a Democratic majority in the United States Senate. And this Supreme Court seat that is now vacant should be the crystallizing, the clarifying moment for every one of us. Because if they steal this seat in violation of the pledge which Mitch McConnell, that Lindsey Graham, that all of them made back in 2016, that it was a precedent that you don't fill a vacancy during a presidential year while holding that seat open for 400 days. Count them, 400 days without a vote on a Supreme Court justice. And now, with the passing of Ruth Bader Ginsburg, 45 days before an election, they say nothing that they had ever said in the past means anything. That is corruption, plain and simple, just corruption of the political system in our country. Their intention is to have stolen the Merrick Garland seat on the Supreme Court and now to steal a second one. And so we can't allow this to happen. We have to use every single procedural device, every single political device we have to stop them from successfully nominating and confirming a new Supreme Court justice before January 20th of next year. We just have to do everything. And we need everyone out there to just sign up for this historic battle that we are now in, because everything is at stake, both in the election and in who becomes this next Supreme Court justice. The Affordable Care Act is at stake, ensuring that pre-existing conditions are absolutely protected, ensuring that the climate crisis is dealt with, that the Green New Deal that Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and I introduced is something that's on the agenda for next year, ensuring that LGBTQ rights, ensuring that voting rights. Think about it. This Supreme Court justice might, in fact, vote on whether or not Donald Trump gets seated, perhaps in a 5-4 vote, as fraudulent activity is engaged in by Trump. That's how big the stakes are. So justice is really at stake here. Racial justice, economic justice, educational justice, healthcare justice, environmental justice. It's all now at stake at this historic turning point. And we just have to make sure we're not going to let it happen. And if they just continue to proceed and they just steamroll to the appointment of this new Supreme Court justice to give the Republicans a 6-3 margin in the Supreme Court, then next January, the Democrats in the majority in the Senate, we must abolish the filibuster rule. And we must then enlarge the Supreme Court, because they will have stolen 2 Supreme Court seats. My father was a union organizer. My father always said, you can't beg for your rights, you got to take them. That's where we are right now. We have to organize, not agonize. We have to be out there and fighting and working every single day to win now, to block this confirmation, to win now, to win the presidency, the Senate, and the House. And if necessary, to then win next January when the Democrats control the Senate. so that we do not allow them to have a 6-3 margin in the Supreme Court to undermine all of these fundamental rights that have been put on the books since Franklin Delano Roosevelt was sworn in 1933 for his first term. So thank you all so much for everything that you are doing. You are the all-stars of activism in our country. And all I can say to you is let's go out there and let us fight. So thank you all so much for having me on this evening.
Thank you so much, Senator Merkley. I want to thank all the senators who joined us tonight, Senator Hirono, Booker, Gilbrand, Merkley, and Murky. We are so lucky to count on you as our champions, and we are so lucky to really be in this moment together. Phil reminded us that we don't need to be sitting around reading about the history that was before us and wishing that we were in a different moment, that we lived in a moment of consequence for our families, for our generation, for our future. We are in that moment right now. Every single person who spoke tonight spoke about the fact that this is a pivotal moment, that the fight around the Supreme Court is pivotal for the future of our country, as is the election. And we all spoke about the fact that we have three key fronts of the fight. We have to make sure that we get people out to vote. So there's an electoral front. We have to make sure that we are engaging in the legislative fight actively, that there isn't a single moment when senators are walking around feeling like we are not watching them and that we are not paying attention. They need to feel that every step they take, we are right behind them, whispering in their ears that this is about the future of our country and that the way that they behave in this moment will be remembered forever. And finally, we need to make sure that the movement comes alive and comes to the doors of every senator in every state, in every corner of this country. Elections, legislative fight, and movement, those are the three pieces of our strategy. And this is not new. We have done this before. There have been moments when people thought that everything was lost. I want to ask my brother Jaron to tell me at least of one example when someone told us we are screwed, there is no way we can win, and despite the odds, we won. So Jaron, send us with a story of how we can win and how we can make sure that we do justice, not just to Justice Ginsburg, but to the possibility of building the country of our dreams.
Absolutely. I think just when we all woke up and saw that Donald Trump was going to be the next president and his promise to repeal the Affordable Care Act root and branch, and calling around and talking to different people that I respected that just said, this fight's going to be over with before March is done. There's so much work that we had built at my organization, which is a healthcare organization, that was predicated on the Affordable Care Act. And we were really worried about all of the work that we had done and all the progress that we had made on fighting the spread of HIV and AIDS and making sure that people who are disproportionately impacted by that epidemic were going to be able to live full and healthy lives. And we won. I want everybody who's on this call to go back to Friday night. Think about where you were, how you felt when you saw either a text or on the screen that Ruth Bader Ginsburg was dead. Think about how you felt when you woke up on 2016 in November and saw that we weren't going to have our very first woman president, that instead we were going to have a candidate who started off his candidacy by saying that immigrants were rapists and has also allegedly sexually abused at least 26 women. And think about what you would have done in that moment to make sure that these things don't happen, to make sure that the next president of the United States is not just going to take us back to the status quo, but advance us further down the road towards becoming the country that we need to be. I was fortunate enough after John McCain gave his infamous thumbs down vote after relentless pressure from Bird Dog Nation, which Housing Works formed with Center for Popular Democracy to save the Affordable Care Act. And I was so tired. And I remember in the interview, I was asked the question, how long can you keep this up? And I answered honestly, we can do this forever. Now that I know how much our stories matter, how much our actions matter, how much we can move our senators and our elected officials, I can do this forever. And so can you.
That's right.
Everybody who's on this phone call, we're all we have. There's nobody else who's going to come along and do this. You're the one that's going to do it. You're going to do it for generations to come. You're going to stop this president from making his SCOTUS appointment. You're going to defend the results of the election to make sure that he's out of office when he needs to be. And you're going to make sure that the next president for the first 100 days is on a path towards building a better country. The status quo return to normal is not good enough for so many of us, right? Because in some way, shape, or form, for the last 35 years, the United States has engaged in brutality along the border. More than that. But this immigration policy that we see right now, that's been around in some way, shape, or form for 35 years. Black people have been shot in the streets and left to die or left for dead by the police or by law enforcement. That has continued to happen. That hasn't stopped. And the Affordable Care Act, as great as it is not enough. We need universal coverage. We need affordable universal coverage. We need something. We need Medicare for all. We need something so that we can all get the health care that we deserve, that we need.
That's right.
So
So
like
these
Senator Markey just said, I was going to say, and like Senator Markey said, they're your rights. You don't beg for them. You go and take them. So let's go and take them.
That's right. This country that is promised to us is still a promise unfulfilled, and it will only become real when we fight for it. And it has only come closer to the reality of that promise because people have fought for it, because people fought to end their enslavement, because women fought for the right to vote, because gay, lesbian, bisexual, and transgender people fought against police violence and for the right to be recognized as human beings, because immigrant youth are fighting to remind us all that this country is their home and that no one can take their dignity away. So the Supreme Court is one of the terrains in which we negotiate the future and build this country of our dreams together. And that's why we need to make sure that Donald Trump does not get another one of his judges in that court for a lifetime appointment. But we also need to make sure that we make our democracy that we work to really fight for our democracy, to protect it from the attack of the Republicans that have no scruples and that have no kind of moral center that they are displaying in this moment. I want to ask people to walk away from tonight holding both the sadness of losing such a giant, the gratitude that we have for her efforts, and our commitment to one another to fight to make sure that all her efforts are not in vain. I want to ask people to follow up on all the text messages and emails that you will get, to go to the webpage of Organize Vote Win, to go to the different pages that we will send you by email and by text. And I want to ask people to remember the words that Phil told us, which is that we don't have to wait for the movement to come to us. We are the movement, and we are the people we've been waiting for. So, Jaron, take us home.
Well, I think almost everything's been said on this call. I don't want to keep anybody much longer, but you're going to receive text messages. If you signed up for them, you're going to receive follow-up emails. Let's go out there. Let's take our democracy back. Let's make sure that the next president is doing better than the status quo. Let's make sure that we continue to build a better country for all of us.
Thank you all so much for joining tonight. Good night.